we left off. Some crazy thing in the Balkans did end up sparking a war. We have seen that Germany's movement through Belgium, so not quite what we would have expected to be the spark, is going to be infringing upon the neutrality of Belgium, is going to draw some parties into a world war. We left off with two opposing alliances, the Central Powers and the Allies. And so now we're going to talk about where the fighting begins. Hence the book, All Fight on the Western Front. Almost all of our fighting is going to take part on the Western Front, namely in France. Okay, so you need to know that most of the things... Remember, AP Euro isn't going to focus a lot on all the details of every battle. I will do my best to give you a synopsis of each. They're going for turning points in the war. They're going for causes. They're going for effects. Okay, so that's what we're really going to look at. And so, really, because all of this fighting is in France, Germany has realized that they're going to end up fighting a two-front war, which is exactly what OBB didn't want. But they're going to turn their attention first to France, and then we'll talk about some stuff going on in Russia that's going to stop this two-front war, not to the benefit of what anything Germany did, but what's going to be going on in Russia. And so the German military has plans to invade France through Belgium, like we talked about last time. They would think that their goal must be to defeat France quickly. Remember, everyone goes into this war thinking they'll be home by Christmas, pretty optimistic. There hasn't been a major war in 50 years, so they're not really expecting the horrors of this war. They think that they can beat France in 6 weeks by quickly going through Belgium and getting to France, sweeping around Paris, and then redeploy their troops to the east all at once and then soundly defeat Russia, is their plan. It's a Schieffelin plan. It's by General Schieffelin. You've probably heard of this. In fact, I was just talking to Mr. Butts today about how there's been some uncovered, once the German block went down, 1991, some recovery that General Schieffelin actually, what he's been credited for is a little bit different, so I'll have to keep researching that. But for our purposes in AP Euro, what you need to know is the Germans' plan was to take Paris very quickly within 6 weeks, then turn all of their attention towards Russia. It was predicated, their plan, on speed. It wouldn't work without it. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work because of the Battle of the Marne. And so you need to circle this battle. Okay? This is one of those like the whole war could have been different. It could have been over by Christmas if things had gone as the Germans had planned here. The Battle of Marne takes place in September of 1914. After Germans came in within sight of Paris, French and British troops pushed the German forces back. We have 2 million troops engaged in this battle, so really large amount of troops. Again, I want to say that they thought they would be home early. Never did they think that we would be losing millions of troops any side of this in this war. So 2 million troops here. The French army was led by General Joseph Joffre, and the battle is this like a... okay. Oh, I haven't made it, I think, all the way there yet. You don't tell me anything. Okay. I haven't watched any of it yet. Oh, yeah. Okay. I just started. So, yeah, just don't reveal anything about this. I just said General Joseph Joffre. Stephen. Okay. Thank you, sir. Alright, so the battle represented the end of mobility on the Western Front. This is why the AP Euro guys are going to ask you about this. Please circle B. This battle ends that whole, like, hey, we're going to take France really quick kind of thing. It ends mobility. It also ends, like, movement. We are going to spend pretty much all of World War I talking about gaining and losing a couple feet. So this ends mobility. Talking about mobility, the British and French, the Germans didn't really expect the British to be there with the French or the Belgians. Are going to use taxi cabs. We now have automobiles to shuttle people to the front. They go a whole amazing 28 miles per hour. Or wait, no, it's 8 horsepower. So I think like it could go like 5 to 28 miles per hour, depending on how many men were loaded on the cab. Like I almost think of like early like a lawnmower. So you could outrun it, but then it gives you something to, like, when you're being shot at, because we're going to see new war technology here that just clink, clink, clink off. But anyway, they're taxied in by taxi cabs, but it represents the end of mobility. And why it represents the end of mobility is because the Schieffelin plan is going to fail. There are a couple reasons for this. I've listed them here for you, A, B, and C. The Belgians surprised the Germans with their resistance. They really didn't think that the Belgians would step up and actually oppose them marching through to get to Paris. So that surprises them. It slows them down. The British are also there unexpectedly. I just like the Germans never quite believed the British and French could be friends, just like the whole Morocco incident. They just really don't expect the British to show up for France. The left of the German line failed to lure the French army into Alsace and Lorraine and destroy it, and that was a key part of the Schieffelin plan. And so this equals end of mobility in this war and trench warfare. We also have that they didn't expect the Russians, who've had this pattern of staying the heck out of things, to mobilize so quickly on the Eastern Front. And we will talk about the Eastern Front in just a little bit. 4 days after the Battle of the Marne starts, the Germans will actually begin to retreat. So it's a pretty quick, like, in-your-face, this isn't going to work out how you want, which is why the Battle of the Marne is important. They're driven back 60 miles. And you need to write about the Battle of the Marne that this is the most important event in the war, because it ends the Schieffelin plan. It means that there will be no home by Christmas. And we will see a Russian army able to develop in the east.
Wait, so the big significance is the Russian army being able to develop?
Russian army being able to develop, it ends the Schieffelin plan, and nobody will be home by Christmas. So everything that we thought about World War I going into it is done. Yeah. So, like I said, this ends mobility, and so one of the big results of this Schieffelin plan failing in the Battle of the Marne is people are going to entrench themselves, and we are going to see a lot of this war and millions of lives lost over feet. Okay, and that is due to the use of trench warfare. It's going to cause a stalemate that will last for 4 bloody years. So just horrendous. All Quiet on the Western Front does a fairly good job of painting a picture of how horrible trench warfare is. Yes, ma'am. Well, they all have to kind of dig in because of the Battle of the Marne. So the Germans who are there, who are not giving up on the Western Front because they realize they have to take out France if they're going to get their troops back to defeat Russia, and they realize if they leave the Western Front open to the French will just move in while their attention's to the east. So they really don't have an option once they're engaged. So both sides not able to gain land will entrench themselves. And we will see, though, in a minute, if you want to know like who is first with like the technology of things, that the Germans are going to be the first with a lot of technology that will result because of trench warfare between British and French. And that's because Germany's in the lead with the Second Industrial Revolution. And so, yeah. So we'll both start entrenching just as a result of the Battle of the Marne. Long trenches stretch from the North Sea to the Swiss border in the south. They become more and more elaborate as time goes on. At first, they're just, man-made ditches, and then they'll all interconnect. There'll be some bunkers underground. There'll be all kinds of craziness. Despite massive casualties on both sides, few gains were made in terms of gaining ground. And by 1916, we're going to see that there are massive casualties, but neither side could break through. A couple things about trench warfare. I'm sure you're familiar. I'm sure you spent a lot of time in U.S. history looking at the trenches. Am I correct? A little bit? Okay. Well, maybe just because in European history it's a little more significant. Really, people call France the crater, and this time it starts to look like the surface of the moon. Because nothing will live when you bombard it for this long with warfare, and so it really does from aerial pictures that we will have in years after, because the airplane will be developed for war use in World War I, but not really used for more than looking for things. But we will have aerial shots. It looks like the surface of the moon. Pretty horrific. But there were things in trench warfare that is just horrible. The dead bodies everywhere. It says, and even in All Quiet on the Western Front, that you would be sitting next to an individual who's been taken out by a sniper who is sitting up a little bit too high, and then you're stuck with that body. For there's no one to come and get them. You get out of the trench, you're going to be shot. There's barbed wire. No man's land is the area between the trenches of two opposing troops, and so that would be the area where you're the most vulnerable. Over the top means when you were finally ordered because your trench has become so dangerous, it's uninhabitable, and you need to make progress, or you've been ordered to make a suicide almost attack. It's called going over the top, and you would just hope to make it through. Trench foot is going to be a big source of our casualties here. It's occurs because your feet are constantly wet, like in Forrest Gump. Keep your feet dry. That's serious because trench foot became so painful that you couldn't walk. And it comes from never having dry feet over a long period of time. It's an infection. We'll also see that disease and rats and all of the other pestilence are going to be a big problem in trench warfare at all. So not all of it is warfare killing you. In fact, most of our casualties had inflicted wounds. So one way to get out of the trenches was to get yourself to a medic's tent. So it's like, hey buddy, like shoot me in the foot, in the hand, to get me out of here, like get me out of the trenches. So actually most of our pretty simple casualties were self-inflicted wounds. If you were hurt in a trench, it was usually a fatal wound other than that. So, pretty. So I did the. Alright, so the battle, I think actually I'm going to skip down to technology and then come back to the battles, because the battles will make more sense once you know about the technology. So, technological advancements in the war is going to actually increase casualties on top of trench warfare. We're going to have the development of the machine gun, and the reason that World War I changes the stage is because we had the Industrial Revolution. Because all of the countries involved in this, except for Russia a little bit, we're going to see that Russia is going to be using like house goods to fight for a while because they run out of materials. We can't get stuff there. But machine guns, the Maxim gun was the first machine gun. It was used on the Plains Indians right here in America. Go us. Yeah, good history there. And then it will be used in World War I. Perhaps the most important reason for the frightful casualties was because of the machine gun. It's a defensive weapon. If you look at this machine gun, you wouldn't be like picking this sucker up and porting it into trenches. You would just wait for people to come along into your area and then plow them down. It goes very quickly. The thing you would worry the most with the machine gun is overheating. They keep buckets of water there and things until that's improved. But the machine gun, first used effectively by the Germans in mowing down French and British defenses, and then will later be used by all sides. One machine gun equaled the effectiveness of 40 men with rifles. So as we start to see casualties increase, the machine gun becomes even more important as you have fewer and fewer men on the front lines. So that's the machine gun. As a result of the machine gun, we are going to get the tank, which is mobile artillery, but at first it will just start as an offensive weapon to man against machine guns. Not only men inside of it, but men walking alongside of it, it could deflect. This will be developed in 1916. The British will get it. It's developed earlier by the Germans. Its artillery was now mobile, and it went a whopping 5 miles per hour. So, I don't know. I feel like I would end up getting shot anyway because I'd be like so freaked out that I would like then outrun the tank and then be out in the open. Because I mean, 5 miles, that's like a brisk walk on a treadmill. You know what I mean? Like I'd be like, ah, and then oh crap, I got out behind it. Next is the airplane. Like I said, mainly reconnaissance during World War I. It was to look for things. Initial air flights just consisted of pistols, so like you were the pilot and you had a pistol. Yeah. Germany, though, will develop the first fighter plane. It took some training because their first plane shot themselves out of the sky because they had like the machine gun and the propeller shot up.
Indiana Jones the Last
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah. He's like, ah. But yeah, they would. They had mounted these machine guns on all of these fighter planes, but they were going to be fighter planes, and they weren't timed to the propeller and then shot themselves out of the sky. So they will get the timing down after that, and in response later, Britain and France will have their own fighter squadrons. Britain are going to use planes to bomb Zeppelin bases in Germany. That's going to be their primary use, and anti-aircraft. Next one, and the one that scares me, probably this other stuff, not as scary to me, but would be poison gas. Poison gas was used by Germans very early in the war, and they used it so early after its invention. Remember, pharmaceuticals and pesticides and manure and such were the products of the Industrial Revolution in Germany, so they had all of these chemicals. they used it so early that their soldiers didn't even really know how it works. So the first time they used it, they sent out the poison gas, and as the Allies were running away, they ran right into it and killed themselves. Also, very close to that time, they didn't realize, and I'm sure that you guys are more educated in this, even like in chemistry, that it was heavier than air, poison gas, and so it settles into trenches. So they were like, okay, we won't run as quickly, but then they would still run after the Allies as they fled and jump into trenches where the gas had settled and then die. And so it kind of kills more Germans at first than it does Allies, but then they'll figure it out. We'll also have mustard gas because, yeah, Second Industrial Revolution. Don't pay to be don't pay to pioneer. So that's what British and French are paying for right now, is being the first ones to industrialize. One of the first, because it went from Britain to France, and Germany's in the lead now. We'll see the use of mustard gas, that's the bubbling all over your skin. It attacks your epidermal, which is your largest organ, so pretty serious there. It could still kill you. Poison gas you're inhaling kills you. Gas mask will try to alleviate that. Hitler has a bad run-in with his gas mask not getting to his face because of his mustache, so hence shorter mustache. He almost died in World War I, so that traumatizes him. Just side note there. They put gas masks on horses, and so then they would shave right here too to make sure it's sealed, so that your cavalry would make it. We will also have tear gas as well, which is not deadly but pretty painful. My husband said that he'd rather be tased 100 times again than he would ever to be tear gassed again. It was horrible. I thought it was funny, but it was horrible. Next, U-boats I have on the same slide. Submarines initially used by the Germans had devastating effects on Allied shipping throughout the war. We're going to see that a blockade will be imposed by both Allies on Germany, and Germany try to impose a blockade. The U-boat will be the reason the United States eventually enters the war. At this time, there were actually rules to warfare. So if you were going to bomb another ship or try to destroy it, you had to stop and announce and allow the people on that ship to board your ship to save human life. And then you would sink the ship with all of the whatever product on it to hurt the country, but you wouldn't hurt innocent people. You wouldn't cause casualties. The U-boat, that doesn't work. You don't pop your U-boat up out of it and go, hey guys, we're here to attack you. Because if you were a merchant ship, you could ram a U-boat and just sink it. So the point is to be sneaky. And so this is going to change warfare, and it's one of the reasons that we'll join the war, because we're mad at Germany breaking the rules of engagement or the rules of war as they've stood first. No, the U-boats and then dreadnoughts will come next, but it's their use of warfare. Yeah, of naval warfare. Yeah, so we'll see the rules broken there. Submarines. The hydrophone will be developed to try to find submarines underwater, and missiles that can be launched from the top to the bottom, where they thought that they end up blowing up a lot of other underwater stuff rather than the submarines, but it's an attempt at getting to Germany. Let's see, Zeppelins, blimps are going to be used by Germany. I don't know if I put aside yet. Used by Germany to bomb London and other civilian targets, and this will get you to your Total War video. So we're starting to see that no more do those rules apply where if you're an innocent, if you're not a soldier on the front lines, that you are kept away from war. War is going to be civilian and all of society. Radio will eventually be used towards the end of World War I, wireless technology. The Germans will totally take advantage of Russia's inability to compete with the radio and use it to their advantage there. I think I threw, artillery in here. I just have one picture of Big Bertha. Artillery is going to add superpower here. Trying to break the trench warfare is what artillery is used for. It can shoot from long distances. Like I always said, I have this morbid fascination with knowing the first person to be taken out by a type of war technology. So artillery, morbid fascination, as I was saying, like the first person to be shot from like 74 miles away. Can you just imagine that it's never happened to anyone and you think you're all fine? And you're sitting in your trench and like you've been pretty safe because the sniper hasn't taken you and you're pretty entrenched, and then all of a sudden, like, I just think that yeah. Like, I just want to know what it would be. I guess I don't really want to know. I have a morbid fascination of in that moment realizing that you've just been hit by something that far away. Like the first person to get hit by a bullet from a gun that can shoot more than just like right here. Or a cannon, you know, like.
So did they see you? Like, did they know that they were shooting something 73 miles away?
They knew the general trench area.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
No, but yeah. But I just like the perspective of that one. Like, you hear the. You're like, what's. Oh!
Nice.
It's morbid, but I just wonder.
Yeah.
I'm not willing to try it out or anything,
Right,
but the French 320 millimeter railway gun is going to then attach to railroads and be able to be carried and portable into war. German Big Bertha, he named it after his wife. I do not know if his wife was big or she was happy about this. I would not be happy. Like, please don't name the gun Big Lindsay. That would not make me happy, but her husband did. So 74 miles away, we will also see the advent of helmets, or more modern helmets in this time period. Because the little like leather caps we would have worn earlier just wouldn't get it cut it in the trench. Not that much would, but we do see an improvement here. All right, so I'm going to flip back now that you know the war technology. These other two battles will make sense to you. So I'm going to cut back to the Battle of Verdun. Okay, so that should take you back to page 6. Okay. Oh, I was like, huh? Am I not on the right? Yeah, okay. Yeah. So this is the second bloodiest battle. It began in February. Yeah, page 6. We were right under trench warfare. Yeah. I did the typed your notes, and then I was like, well, it probably won't make sense how bloody these battles were until I tell you how they were killing each other, and kind of went back. So sorry about that. Battle of Verdun began in February. It's in France, because all of our fighting pretty much in the Western Front in France. Germany sought a battle of attrition that would bleed France white, is what they called it, bleed France white, and force it to sue for peace. We will have 1 million shells fired, and this is a perfect example of total war. You might want to write total war right here. When you watch the total war video that's this weekend's homework, this is what I'm talking about. Like, we will kill everybody and everything to win. It's not just the soldiers. We are just going to try to kill everyone. France lost 540,000 men. Germany will lose 430,000. The war's second bloodiest battle. General Philippe Pétain's leadership of French forces will make him a national hero because there is no way that they should have survived this bombardment. He does some pretty amazing stuff, but they won't ask you all the details about this. It kills more people, I think, than have been killed in the wars up to this time. We have more artillery fired than any wars up to this time in this one battle. And that brings us to the Battle of the Somme, which begins in July of 1916. We will see 20,000 people killed in just one day in this battle. The British and French offensive to break through the German lines is what the purpose of this battle was. We'll have more than 1 million casualties, and this is the bloodiest battle of the war. Losses of men, 420,000 for Britain, 200,000 for France, and 650,000 for Germany. And it's at this point that we get Henri Remarque's All Quiet on the Western Front, and it's used later to illustrate the horrors. Although some people read it as a nationalistic spin during the time, it really isn't. If you read the account in here, Paul, our protagonist, gets very disillusioned with war. But in the beginning, he's very like marching off to like, yay, support my country. But you see him dramatically change, especially by the time he gets to come home. So I would recommend it if you haven't read it. It's really good. All right, so we are coming back to page 7 at the bottom, and this is all the Western Front. We're just going to hit the Eastern Front really quick and a little bit of the South, and then we'll be done. So the Eastern Front. Where else is Germany concerned? If the Western Front was France, where are we going now? Russia. Okay, so the Eastern Front is Russia and Germany kind of facing off. It will be totally different. We are not entrenched here. It is totally open. Open fighting. There are not trenches on the Eastern Front. We don't really build up to that part because we're going to see this doesn't last very long. General von Hindenburg and General von Ludendorff are going to be responsible for defeating invading Russian armies at Tannenberg. Circle Tannenberg. This is what AP Aero guys are going to ask you about. At first, the Russians are winning because, like I said, the Germans didn't think that they could mobilize that fast. But it will be these two generals at Tannenberg that will turn the tide of the war in the East. So if you were asked a multiple choice question about what battle in the East turned the tide of the war, it would be Tannenberg. The main reason, Russia's got lots of people, but not lots of stuff. Okay, they're like trying to take guns off dead people. Like we are just already this early in the war running out of things. The Russians were poorly organized. They've been modernizing, but they hadn't really had a chance to put this new modern army into practice ever. They haven't been victorious since, well, really since first semester we talked about. And so we're going to see that that causes problems. There's also problems at home, right? Problems at home here. What's getting ready to happen in Russia because of all of this modern... Yeah, the Russian Revolution is getting ready to happen. We had socialism creep in. We now have a working class. That working class is going to want some rights, okay? And so in Russia, we're going to see that workers unite. We're going to see a communist revolution coming up. And also at this time, the Tsar government will become overthrown. So remember, we had the Romanovs. He's going to be off in this battle in World War I and actually be overthrown. And we're going to see a new regime come in. The Ottoman Empire is also right smack dab in the way of supplies coming from the Allies to Russia, so we can't get anything there. All kinds of stuff. So the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, December 1917, Lenin, the leader of the after the Bolshevik Revolution, will take Russia out of the war. He does this because he's not the guy that started the war. Okay, remember the Tsar will be deposed. This will make the war no longer a two-front war, but he's going to have to pay dearly for it. Okay, he has to give 25% of Russian land to Germany for backing out.
Yeah, it sounds really like this war is like just like a fantasy football.
Yeah, it's
Like, is there like so many like stupid rules, and then it's like, well, you lost, so like just give us this land.
Yeah. See, that's the comparison I want to make. Because like I said, it gets stuck in my head, that stupid relationship thing. But I guess it's not stupid if I still remember it that way. But he did the whole class on World War I in terms of a high school relationship. It just got annoying by the 16th week. I was like, oh, please don't compare Germany to some teenage girl again.
Wait,
Like,
also, so the idea was that Germany was kind of stagnating on the west.
yes.
Mm-hmm. But they were killing them.
Yeah, they were winning on the Eastern Front, mainly because the Turks have come in on the side of Germany. Of course, they're blocking Allied supplies, and so not so much. I mean, I don't want to speak too ill of the Russians, but they just don't have. I mean, you have most of your men not armed. That's a problem with war. So that's that. We're going to come into the Gallipoli campaign. We'll come back to this. But that's what's going on in the Eastern Front. We're going to see that they pull out. So the Gallipoli campaign in 1915 is a peninsula. It's next to the Dardanelles there, if you can see. So Gallipoli, we're going to see the British and Australian forces are going to try to take the Dardanelles to solve this Russia problem. Like, we're like, oh, we got to get stuff there. They're our only friend. We need a two-front war. They try to take Constantinople. And so we have on the Eastern Front and defeat the Turks. 200,000 British troops will be killed in 10 months. About 500,000 total. Okay, so we lose a lot of people over this very narrow strip of land next to the Dardanelles. So right here, as you can see on the little passageway, and this is our attempt to try to get around the Turks and get supplies to Russia. We also are going to have a southern front, what you would call the Middle East. This is probably, anyone read Lawrence of Arabia?
Oh my gosh, it's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah. So Lawrence of Arabia is going to be pretty much our guy on the southern front. A lot of people talk about it as the southern front, but we really do need to discuss it because the problems we're having in the Middle East today are a lot of the results of what Britain promised the Middle East in this time and did not deliver. T.E. Lawrence, or a.k.a. Lawrence of Arabia, as he gets called by the people in Arabia. I know.
No. Or you're right, it was like 20%.
Yeah. It still feels like this year. This year's been so fast.
Oh, really?
So he's a British officer who is going to score major victories in the Middle East to weaken the Turks. What the British do is go there and try to promise nationalism or release from the Ottoman Turks. Like, don't you wish you could be your own? We're going to promise you these freedoms. And try to spark Arabian nationalism, which they're really successful at. They don't fail there. They get people all wound up. Where they do fail is when the war's over, they don't deliver on the promises.
So why do they want to start
We want to get supply. Yeah, we want to mess with the Ottomans, find a way to get supplies across. Okay, so like we are cut off pretty much, and so we're wanting to find a way here. So the British are going to gain support from Arab tribes who resented Ottoman domination of the region. He's very successful. By all accounts from what I've read about T.E. Lawrence, I think his first name is Thomas, I remember. Not something crazy. Is that he really believed in this. Like, he thought the British had sent them there as some kind of freedom fight. Like, he was like, I've got your freedom, and he was very disappointed when the British don't deliver. But really, these are some of the issues in Baghdad, Jerusalem, and Damascus, is that they don't keep the promises of nationalism here. Okay, so that's our southern. I always have to throw T.E. Lawrence in because you just have to know. So British and Allied naval blockade. So this is the last little piece here, guys, and then you'll have your weekend video. So the goal of the blockade. So we've seen that Russia's had to back out. We're entrenched in France. I say we, but we're not in here yet. We're going to see this draws us in, so I'm talking preemptively, us being the United States. So the goal was to strangle the Central Powers. So they're like, okay, we've got to do something that's going to start cutting things off. Starting in 1914, they started using superior fleet and sea mines to cut Central Powers off from overseas trade, trying to starve Germany. This is total warfare. I don't care if your mama dies, your children die, we are starving you. Okay, we are going to make sure guns don't get to you, food doesn't get to you. What Germany responds to is they're going to sink any Allied vessel that they see, all ships carrying goods going to Britain. Germany does, however, take out an ad in the New York Times warning Americans not to get on any ship going towards Britain because they are shooting every ship they see or trying to take it out of the water.
That's kind of cool doing that.
Yeah, I mean, you can still look up, and they have it on microfilm, the actual newspaper ad that was taken out and purchased by the Germans. Either Americans didn't read the newspaper or thought we were above caring.
Yeah, that's kind of weird because the way that it's taught in the U.S. is that, like, oh, man, they did this to us without warning. And blah, blah,
No,
blah.
I mean, it wasn't like a, hey, let's have this conference with your president and all the United people, but it was in the largest circulating.
That was the only newspaper.
Yeah, it's the largest only circulating newspaper. You don't think that then the president and everyone else didn't see that? Yeah, so I just think our mismanagement of the information was, anyway, talking about personal emails and misinformation of information. And how long do you think it would take to delete 30,000 emails? I get frustrated when I don't check mine for a week and have to delete 10.
Even for I'm trying to think of whether or not I want 6th grade photos on my Facebook when I go off to college.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to because it takes an hour to delete 10 photos. So it's should I just delete my Facebook?
Should I just live with it? Yeah. What should I do? Now I've dated my podcast, but anyway. But for whatever reason, we did not pay attention to this piece of information. And Americans get on a boat headed for Britain. Supposedly, they even had ammunition on it. It's called the Lusitania. In 1915, U-boats sank it, killing 1,200. 128 of those were American. We get completely ticked off. The Germans actually apologize and pay reparations to all of the families of the Americans that were on that ship, even after they'd taken out an ad in a newspaper. And we make them promise that they will never do it again. They do make that promise. But they are, by 1917, starving to death. Okay, this blockade is killing. I mean, they're going to lose the war, and their people are suffering. And in 1917, they began unrestricted submarine warfare, sinking all ships they see with U-boats. Okay, this is the most important reason for the U.S. entry into the war. We come in the same year that Russia leaves, and we say that we want to make the world safe for democracy. So we come in saying we're going to make the world safe for democracy, and mainly to protect what we say was changes to the rules of warfare, I think is really the underlying cause. You didn't give a warning, even though you took out an ad in a newspaper. So anyway, this drags us into the war. There is something else going on the side that I want to set you up before we talk about the Russian Revolution on Tuesday. Is the Archangel expedition in the summer of 1918. So as the revolution is really taking off in Russia, we decide we need to get Russia back in this war, and do the communists like war? Let me rephrase that. Would the communists support this war? No, because they are internationalists, not nationalists. They want the workers of the world to unite. We don't have time for this war where all of the workers of the world are dying, fighting each other for nothing for their gain. So, the United States realizing this and wanting Russia back in so there'll be a two-front war, is going to take a secret mission into Germany and support the whites against the Reds, against the Bolshevik Revolution during the Russian Civil War, and try to keep Russia in World War I. This backfires because we do know that the Bolsheviks are going to win, and in effect it prolonged the Russian Revolution, making us the bad guys. What the communists are going to say is that we tried to strangle their new wonderful government in its cradle, that we tried to kill it in its infancy, and this is going to cause a lot of those tensions we see coming up as we move after World War II. So, and that's where I'm going to leave you right here with, we've covered all of the fronts. Then you're going to watch a video on Total War, and then we are going to talk about diplomacy during the war, which is one of my favorite topics, like how do politicians deal with all of this. And then the end of the war next time, and then we'll be off to the Russian Revolution on next Thursday. And that should just take us one day to get that in and done. And then I will go back to your slide here, and I have what's coming up. I don't know if anyone's leaving early for spring break, but I always like to give you the graciousness of having everything on Edmodo early and letting you know what's going on. Tuesday's the Russian Revolution, Unit 8.2. Thursday we'll cover the Age of Anxiety, Unit 8.3, and I will give your spring break assignment. If you happen to have to be absent or you do leave early for spring break, everything will be in a spring break assignment folder on Edmodo and will be posted on our main page. So please check it there. You can print, just as always, you can print all of these note packets from there, whatever you need. Any questions so far about World War I? The mania, the Western Front, the Eastern Front, the Southern Front, the secret campaign in Russia? The actual assignment over spring break will just be a little prep work for our upcoming unit, but the main thing is going to be a practice test and studying for a comprehensive multiple choice exam. So it's not like an actual assignment that's going to be handed in. There will be study materials that I'll be checking, but it's giving you all of the resources you need to be successful on our last comprehensive exam of the year. So I always feel like that's pretty fair because anybody can do it from anywhere, and it doesn't take all of your time. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like I have to sit and check out this huge paper and need to be on the internet because I can give you the paper form of any of it. But your test, no, I will not do that to you like first day back from spring break. Here's a comprehensive exam. We still have some more material to get through. I just want to give you that time to get started because I know that a lot of your classes are going to start those sorts of things. There's EOCs coming up. There's AP exams getting ready to start. So I like to give you lots of time to study. Yes, sir. I know. So it's here for what we need to do. If you want a reminder. Thank you, though.